Hi, Oliver here. I wanted to talk about Star Wars. I feel like I've already lost some of you, which is okay, but hopefully I haven't angered any of you yet. I wanted to talk about George Lucas's very brief summary, his sort of just a glimmer of an idea of what he had for episodes 7, 8, and 9. So he made a very passing, it was such a small comment, and everyone got hung up on it, even though he barely said anything for 3 movies. People got hung up on just the very minor thing of him saying about going into the forces, like the Force, that Force. There's a microverse, like a really smaller, different universe, and I think people were looking at it a little too literally and not looking at the much bigger picture of what that could have meant and what that could have done. I think you need to look at George Lucas as a fan, and he's a fan of films. If you look at what he does, is he has a certain genre that he loves, and he tries to do it his own way. So Star Wars originally, it was because of Flash Gordon, Buck Rogers, and instead of being able to get the rights to something like that and doing a movie out of that, he made his own universe, which can be laborious at times to come up with all the lore and to come up with just all the detail and everything, and if you want to plug something in, you have to create it. So also with loving, he watches films. He watches Steven Spielberg's films all through the 80s and 90s. He would help them, whoever out. Indiana Jones, he was working on stories for that. And he would see special effects in things like Jurassic Park, which he saw and was like, you know what, I think it's time to make the Star Wars prequels, because these films are actually really pulling off these effects. And he actually also, I don't know if he commented on it, someone will have to check this, or if ILM commented on it. I believe at one point there was talk of putting Matrix-style effects in Episode 3, which didn't happen, but if you think about it, it's not absurd. Because if any movie broke ground like Star Wars did, The Matrix definitely broke ground when it came to special effects, and combining that with good story, good characters, good acting, good atmosphere. That movie really pulled all of that off, as well as Star Wars did. And directors watch other movies. James Cameron commented on Lord of the Rings as to when he's like, I'm ready to make Avatar, the technology is there. And at the time of the prequels coming out, the Lord of the Rings movies were out. They were almost rivals at times. Not really, because summer and winter, but same kind of year, it was the same thing happening. I think very much going to that idea of a microverse, what George Lucas really had in mind. I think he was inspired by The Matrix and Lord of the Rings as films, and wanted to take Star Wars into a world that could do what both of those films did. He was going to take both those concepts, both those worlds, those ideas, combine them, and then do it Star Wars way. So what do I mean by that? Well, the microverse would be like going into either the real world or the Matrix. Like, it's a way to transfer that layered element of there's something happening on the ship. Meanwhile, these people are transferred into another world. So the ship is going, there could be a trader on there or whatever, but there's this whole other functioning universe where the character actually is. Because they're in the microverse. They're going to I keep saying microverse. I don't think if he said microverse. The Force world, whatever the Force. They're in the Force plane. They're in the Force-verse. And they can't be in both places at once. Maybe eventually they could excel at the Force and be way better, and they could be in both places at once, not an issue, but it's 3 movies. We're talking about 3 movies, episode 7, 8, and 9. So this is several movies to get through the layer, to get through the rules, and to do all that. I think that would have been the perfect way to kind of just to separate from the normal movies, well, not normal, but like the normal Star Wars universe they had done, to kind of go, they can go deeper. And then where would you go? What would be in that world? Well, I think Lord of the Rings, you go back to Buck Rogers and Flash Gordon. The Star Wars universe is populated with technology. It's almost like a plateau, like they can travel at the speed of light from one end of the galaxy to the other in like a day. No problem. Like in Star Trek, that takes like 70 years or something. They have shields, they have all kinds of laser cannons, they have just everything. They just, droids that can float and whatever. But in this Force universe, this different realm, it probably would not have had technology. It probably would have had people with armor and blade weapons, maybe lightsabers, but it would have gone more medieval, because when they were making, Buck Rogers and Flash Gordon, they didn't have special effects that they could just throw everywhere. It wasn't like the prequels where they could just do anything they wanted. So he would have dialed it back and done that style. So I think that's what we would have seen over the course of 3 movies, is this other realm and world like the Matrix that they go into, and then it's more medieval in atmosphere. So there's completely different action set pieces and challenges, anything the characters know, like driving or flying. That skill has no bearing there because they don't do that. Going into animals and those kinds of creatures, actual physical combat, because there's no blaster. Maybe a character could have a blaster, but would it really be effective against a shield? Who knows? I think all of that, I don't know what the real story would have been, but this is what George Lucas does, is he comes up with these sort of plot elements. But it could be that there's someone evil or good, and they're battling there back and forth and using their powers, using the Force to guide other people in the universe we know, where, Han, Luke, Leia, new characters are, that they're trying to mess with things in that world. And I think that would have been a really interesting idea for a story. I think that would have been great, and I think people completely underestimated the potential of talking about this other sort of universe within a universe, this just going there. And I'm hoping, that's kind of my fan theory of what I think it might have been. So, let me know what you think, comment. Is that what you took from it? But that's what I took from it, because I think I'm a pretty big film fan. Like, I like more than just Star Wars and stuff. I think that's what kind of inspired George at the time, but he was making different stories when The Matrix and Lord of the Rings were coming out, that he couldn't do that. But I think he was inspired by that at the time of making the prequels, and then once I got to a certain point, he would have been ready. But maybe, let me know. Maybe you disagree. Maybe you think it would have been a bad idea, but I think a lot of people just didn't quite get the potential there. And that's all I have for you today. And nice talking to you.